Hey, what is up, everyone? It is Tinashe. We're back here with the Done Deal Show with our co-host Tonje.
Hi everyone, it's good to see you and be back on the show. Tinashe, it's been a week. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty good. I was speaking at South by Southwest with Group Black and Brand Innovators this weekend, so that was very interesting. While everything else going on with the banks and everything. And how about you?
Oh man, I was dealing with the banks. We're a startup. We have raised money from venture capitalists, and this weekend I thought all our money was gone. Fortunately, we were not affected by SVB collapse, and it's a good lesson for any entrepreneurs. You cannot put all your eggs in the same basket. And so next thing you know, we open a new bank account, move the money, and I think it's a good lesson for the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. So for today's episode for the Done Deal Show, we will be talking about for talent managers how to essentially, increase your roster's revenue through strategic networking. So let's get
Yeah.
straight into it, Tonje.
So I think in my day to day, I talk with a lot of emerging talent managers who not necessarily live in New York or LA or any big city. And they start their journey by managing their best friend or their daughter. And they don't have any network. So they just deal with the inbound and they reach, a ceiling pretty fast. So what we will explore today is how can you leverage strategic networking to increase your revenue, right? And so the first topic is how do you get in touch with brands? So again, you don't have any network. How do you start?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because a lot of talent managers out there, a bulk of them are getting their business from their inbound. So the great thing about, signing influencers is they're already a marketing machine themselves. So a lot of the top layer is just being able to sign, get your email in the bio right, and get that initial amount of traffic coming in. But with that, has a ceiling.
Inbound is a lot of Chinese apps, right? So at one point, what comes in inbound is not always the best deals. Most of the time is, gifting low hanging fruit, right?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. Some of our creators are the best at inbound. I think that what I'm trying to say is the first step is inbound, right? And kind of identifying the quality of inbound. While we have some who do six figures easily, quarterly through inbound, and some don't have any at all. But I would say now, how do we get beyond just inbound, right? Like, what are other ways to actually start to network and get yourself out there? And for me, I think one of the first thing is looking at in your inbound how to be more of an opportunist and taking calls and pitching brands ideas that are coming through the inbound. Then when we get more into outbound and more strategy there, I know Tonje, you had some ideas in terms of agency partnerships and talent management and everything like that.
So yeah, I think it's really important that as a talent manager to go out, and meet the brand. So typically when one of your creator is invited to an event, you have to be on the list. You have to go, even if you have to invest in this $800 tickets to go to LA, go there because in the room you have the, campaign manager. You can actually create a relationship. You can also highlight that you have other creator in your roster, or you have creative ideas how your talent can, add more value for the brand, because it's rare that your talent will go and be able to position himself as a good partner with this brand. Your talent will go and party, drink, and not necessarily do business development. So you have to invest in-person relationship.
Yeah, but I also just want to, be cautious of understanding the type of event that it is because, I lived in LA for 2 years and I've gone to a fair share of brand events. And I would say that when it's especially creator focused events, it does become a little more difficult to actually maximize because brands are going there brands are activating, and it's usually one brand activating for this one, for these creators for an influencer experience. So they're more focused on making sure that the creator is excited and happy, which is still good for, managers that are kind of in the low hanging fruit, just trying to get going to build initial relationships. and you get additional value from being able to meet other creators to sign for your roster. But I would say if you're going to invest money into actually going and flying out to an event, make sure that it's a brand focused event with multiple brands that are there. That's more of like a conference. So what I've noticed is when I'm going to all these conferences, I've gone to New York Advertising Week, right? CES, South by Southwest, and there's not that many digital talent managers that are going to the more advertising focused events. Everyone thinks that VidCon, Playlist Live is where it's at, but reality, those are focused for really the creator and fan experience. But if you actually niche down into like advertising, boring-esque type of conferences, where I feel like that's where you're actually going to be surrounded by only advertisers, you can get way more value out of that.
So the takeaway here is like you have to invest in industry events that are like tailored for advertisers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot of misperception, right? Like we've all gone to the movie premieres. We've all felt cool on Instagram saying, look at here, I'm at this drop. I got this cool background, I'm here with my talent, yada, yada, yada. And in true reality, like, yes, as a talent manager, it's good for you to be there and to, represent. But also at the same time, some influencer events, we just send the influencer by themselves with their friend to really focus on just content creation, right? The more the influencer can have fun at the event and create content, then the more they're going to stick out to the brand. And therefore that's going to increase, follow up for inbound and everything on our side as well.
But yeah, Tinashe, like I see also value on going to these events is as a talent manager, you will meet other talent managers. And when it comes to increasing your revenue, but partnering with other talent manager, you can have access to brands, right? You can meet a talent manager that has a roster that can fit with your talent, and by partnering with this talent manager, they can give you access to a brand or add your talent to their roster. So what do you think about collaboration between talent managers and how to start? How do you connect with another talent manager? How do you make it clear that you can strike a deal and be in a partnership?
Yeah, I think the easiest way, right, is identifying the difference from a co-talent manager, so another talent manager, versus an influencer marketing agency, right? So meaning that when you're going to go to another talent manager, they're typically very focused on their core roster. So yes, still, give them your roster and also be kind of straight up with pricing. It's very annoying. People are like, oh, here's my roster. So what I mean is like, someone will send me their roster, right? It's like, yeah, if anything comes up, let me know. I'm like, cool. What's your price point? What are you, looking for? They're like, oh, it kind of depends per, it really depends. And it's like, if you don't give me a range, when we're going out finding, influencers or other managers to work with, the first people going to come in mind are the ones that I already have a relationship with, and I know pricing because I know where their brand's looking for, right? That's the quickest way we've gotten in relationships, by being more just like, here's a range to start off with. The ones that are like, oh, I'll tell you pricing once we get there, it's kind of like pushes me back from even wanting to reach out, because it's like, if this is going to be a situation, you might come off a little bit more as difficult. You might not know your talent as well. Are you really that close to that talent to not be able to say a number, right? These are kind of the things that are going on through our heads, especially when the influencer space is so fast paced.
So what I hear here, like as a takeaway for an emerging talent manager, is you have to establish trust. And in order to partner with another like manager, you have to have a certain level of transparency, right? And that's what will give, your potential partner confidence and be like, okay, I have like base rate and I know that you actually have the relationship with your talent. And so how do you prove that you have a relationship with the talent? Because there's so many decks and roster links like, out there where people pretend to have access to those creators. In fact, we just like maybe know their cousin.
Yeah. So I think, the easiest one is email and bio, right? A lot of talent managers, especially starting out, are scared to ask to have that property on the influencer's bio, for they're like, oh, we can keep your Gmail and feel free to forward me, things you want. And that type of relationship for me isn't as strong as those agencies that are able to actually put their emails on there.
It doesn't look professional at all.
Yeah, that be me personally. Don't get me wrong. There's some agencies that are big, they still have Gmails, etc. But for me, it just doesn't like give the confidence that I need. And also, second, I would say is simple things that when it actually comes to execution, like how quick your turnaround is and everything like that. And what does this mean from like a networking side, right? Kind of bringing it back to that is when you think of networking, your idea is how can I get a deal to happen as quick as possible so they can see how I work, right? So sometimes we'll take initial deals with people and it might not be the ideal price. What I know is if they could at least see us work, see how efficient we are, see how easy are we to work with, I know that the next, time they come, I might get more of the budget, right? Because we understand that it just depends on what phase of the campaign is someone coming to me to. And I just want to make sure we just get something going.
And so we talked about relationship with brands. We talked about relationship with other talent managers. Let's talk about how you can leverage networking to grow your roster, right? So in 3 weeks, I've been at Coachella week 1. And the reason why I go there is a lot of talent managers are going there with their talent, but also they know that in the crowd, the week 1 is mostly like creators, like influencers from the whole world. And so this is like the perfect type of event where as a talent manager, you have to invest those like 1 to 2K for a weekend and be super opportunistic and talk to creators, pitch yourself. Is there any other type of event where you feel like talent manager, especially the one with a small roster, the one just starting with like 5 to 10 creators can go and pitch themselves as talent managers? And also, how do you pitch yourself as a talent manager? How do you make a creator understand that you can increase his revenue?
Yeah, I would say I think Coachella is a good one. I say it's going to be like key to getting business, not necessarily. So meaning that Coachella, VidCon, Playlist Live, I think they're good for you just to be there and consistency and stuff like that.
Don't sleep on Vid Summit.
No, yeah, of course. Vid Summit and the list goes on. But I would say one is if you already kind of have a relationship going, the first way of actually scaling your roster is by just saying, hey, let me get you deals, not exclusive. Let me see what I can do for you. And you're kind of running and finding deals for them to just get that initial trust, especially if you're a talent emerging manager who doesn't have a website or kind of a record. That's the first thing I would do is just get deals going. And sometimes it'll be just a handshake. You might not necessarily need to even give a contract, say we're non-exclusive. It might just be a, hey, and obviously they're not legal advice. It's more of like relationship driven.
But why no contract?
Well, because when I first started, I had no reputation. So I literally had to tell a friend, hey, can I get you a deal? They said, yeah, sure. If anything comes, feel free to just send it my way. And I got a brand I actually paid for it, right? Like I paid for the shipping to get it. Yeah. I paid for the shipping and I paid the creator to make it happen just so that the creator could see me actually doing something. Now I have a brand report. Now all of a sudden I can say past campaigns was X, Y, and Z. The next creator I meet, now I have a record, right? So I think the key thing is how are you actually, not the question of how to network more, but is actually how to build your portfolio. Because once you have the portfolio, then the second phase is referrals. Let the creators that work with you recommend people for you, and you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get people to want to sign. Then number 3, keep expectations low in the beginning, right? Like focus on signing, because if you're going to try to go for the high tier people and you have no friendship relationship and you're like, I only want the best quality creators. The reality is in your first phase, the type of creators you're going to get round 1 are not going to be the same round 2, 3, 4, just because like you need to get the ball rolling and just get a proof of concept.
So my takeaway here is like, if you go to like Coachella or any other events, you need to have the ability to maybe from your mobile phone to show like case studies, show that you work with this creator on this campaign and it's on your website, right? You don't just go to some random like creator account and say that, oh, you're the one who run the campaign, right? One thing that I hear often is you also want to show like emails to show that you actually have like a conversation with the brand and you were involved, because it's so easy to create like a deck, a case study, and you were not involved, right?
Yeah, I guess. But for me in my relationship, I don't want my creators thinking they got access to my emails like that. I think that's like one strategy of doing it.
I mean, you should just your screen really fast.
To be, nifty. Yeah, nifty and stuff like that. I totally think that's a really good way of validation if you don't have anything. I would also feel that another really good way to increase the validation that you have and like build trust in them is actually coming to them to say, hey, I don't want to sign you. I want to get to know you and your goals. So actually not being eager is a very great way to gain influence and respect, because a lot of them are constantly being bombarded by fans, by people, they get a lot of attention. So when you flip it and say, hey, I'm interested in you and I want to keep talking, but you verbatim say, I'm not in a rush to sign you, it actually changes that dynamic and they start to see and then just hone in on their goals, hone in on what they want to do. And if you feel like there's alignment on ethics and values, naturally through that process, they'll emotionally, psychologically will start to like trust you more as well too. Because creators at the end of the day are artists.
For me, and it would be kind of a red flag if like a talent manager comes to me and tells me that he wants to know me and babysit me. Like maybe I have more like a business mindset, and I would prefer someone coming and say like, okay, this is transactional. Like I'm here for the business. Like something like.
Yeah, but if you're here for the business, which is fine, that's only gonna really take you so far in the type of relationship you want with talent. So let's go back to that, right? If you're someone who's like, I just want to have a massive list, I don't want to be high touch point with talent, then you're kind of shifting more into an influencer agency where you should actually be focusing on just acquiring brand dollar amounts for a full campaign, and then you go source. That's going to be the difference, because if you're going to go high touch point, you can make more per influencer, but it is more resources. So it's really understanding your objective and the type of relationship you want with creators. For us, we would say that we are 98% agency, 2% talent management. So we only have a very few amount that we're actually high touch point, and the rest is just a transactional campaign relationship. So I would really hone in on, like, as a manager, right? What type of relationship do you want to have? The next Doja and the next, Addison Rae and the next Mr. Beast? Or do you want to just produce a lot of money and have the next brand clients, right? Like, is brands.
But you can do both, right? Because if you look at CAA, WME, they've been able to build a brand over time, yes, about like a decade or 20 years. And artists, they want to be part of it, right? It's good for them to be associated with those like big agencies, and they go for the prestige, but also like those agencies are definitely transactional.
Yes, but also these are emerging digital creators managers who are managing TikTokers from 2-3 years of just being blown up with no sustainability. So for me, I'm looking at more to our listeners of like, what can they do this year to maximize, 2023?
Yeah.
It's like, guarantee you next year, Tonje, conversation is going to be about live streaming. How do you manage live streamers? The TikTok, shot feature, the new series feature that TikTok's having. Like, the conversation, I feel like, is going to shift. And for us to look at the CAAs, the UTAs, is very difficult because they didn't have digital when they first started,
My point, though, is we're talking about networking and how to position yourself as a talent manager wanting to grow your roster. Like, is there a way for you to look cool, to do some cool activations that will bring some prestige to your, like agency and attract creators? I don't know, like you host a party,
Oh, I see. Well, we've done that, man. We've even had a house, so we were paying for influencers, and I think the end of the day is the issue with that kind of stuff is, remember, managers are getting what? Very slow amounts of percentages, right, of a deal.
20, 30.
20, 30, whatever it is, some are even lower. Hopefully they're making money from that. And the main thing is, like, we really want to make sure that if you're going to be increasing your network as a manager, we still want to value their time and not get burnt out, right? And the issue to forewarn talent managers as you start to network and want to have people and influencers signed to you and stuff is be careful of what network you dive into and the type of creators that you attract, right? So, like, I've met so many different communities of talent where you have like your cool YouTubes, prank people. There's a beauty scene, there's a grind, there are more entrepreneurship, marketing creators, right? And the key thing I would say is like, why I'm more focused on let's not just do anything to look cool, but more of focusing on goals and goal setting is it'll make you attract a certain type of creator, right? So if you go splash, big splash, you're going to attract creators who like splashy stuff.
If you throw a party with like balloons and a pool and champagne, you say it's not a good idea.
No, yeah, you're going to keep attracting that type of creators, but can you sustain that? Can you keep doing that? Right. And we've been there too, where we, did the house, we did that. And then in a way, it makes creators think like that's the kind of stuff that you do all the time. And for us, it was more of like an incubator. And we felt like we tried so hard on being so flashy with the house and everything. In reality, we should have just done an online incubator, right? Where we do weekly Zooms that could have actually been more effective for the kind of person we're going for. But instead, it kind of caused this like kind of noise.
It's sending the wrong signals, right? And so people have expectations and like running a talent agency is a business. So you have to think about your margins. Right. So if you only make like 20% and you actually spend like 50% of the revenue, is not good math.
Exactly. So that kind of, detailed conversation. But I would say the key way if you listen to this, like, man, okay, you're saying this. How am I going to increase my roster, right? So let's say maybe you have a few of them, but you want to make that splash. I will say definitely that me living in LA for that, year, 2 years, whatever it was, did allow me to get opportunities to see things in person. And I will still say to this day, in-person relationship with influencers are more impactful and you do get a stronger trust and it goes further. Now, not everyone can necessarily be in LA all year round, but it's totally worth it, I would say, to do a month there in an Airbnb and be very aggressive and strategic about your networking and reach out to, brands that do activations in LA and just say like, hey, my talent willing to come and be that resource. That is totally, I think, will help you grow, but sustainably long-term, once you get that core foundation of talent and maybe I would say when you're able to make 50,000 to 100,000 of revenue with your core talent, then you can kind of back up.
So when you say revenue, is like the management fee or like the campaign budget?
I mean, total. So really management fee ends up being way more less than that. But if you have talent that can bring in 50 to 100,000 total campaign budget, right? That's talent fee and agents management fee together. That's a really good proof of concept that you can then expand off your existing relationships and brands that you've worked with in that, for those deals to then gain more relationships in terms of, hey, it was great working with you with influencer 1, here's influencer 2 and 3. Another thing I would say is increasing your brand relationships is send a survey after campaigns. I don't know many talent managements that do this, but we do this for every single campaign, no matter if it's a one-off or it's an agency, big deal. We do campaign surveys, and those have brought us.
What are the questions?
You want me to give them the sauce? I don't want to give them the sauce.
It's not like for the done deal. Like we are here to help them close deals. So give us the sauce.
Okay, I'll give the sauce. We'll be poured then. So it's pretty simple. So what I do is while we're on this, let me actually bring it up, right? So there's the main section that I'll give you overview is we're looking at how they feel about the content that was made, the type of creators that were made, right, that were part of it, our communication as a manager or agency, and the actual campaign results. Those are kind of like the key things we're asking in terms of like, how do you feel, right, from best to worst to best, etc. And those categories can kind of help you see like, okay, do they like the creator? Yes or no? Okay. They like the performance, yes or no? And this is ammo that you can be using for that next upsell. Now, the key thing that helped this survey do very well was the fact that there were 2 other questions I had at the end, which is one is, would you work with us again? And it basically says like, not right now, we'll follow up. Yes, I'm interested in more of your roster. What other services do you have, etc. That answer has gotten us more business. Then number 2, that's helped us really, really well in terms of the next upselling was having, will you leave a testimonial? That testimonial, just by putting that in there, it showed you that even though the testimonial might not be the best, If they're willing to say, I will publicly endorse you, one, reach out to that person, get on a call, etc., and just catch up. Don't sell right away. Two, you can take that testimonial and boom, now you put it on your deck.
You put it on your roster link by OnScale.
See, there you go.
Okay, that's perfect because like this show is about, like giving some gems, right?
Yeah.
And you just like by this thing helped, I'm sure, like many talent managers, like reinforce their relationship with brands.
Yeah,
So thank you for this.
Exactly.
Earlier you mentioned location and you mentioned that you live in Michigan and you moved to LA for a year. Tell us how it changed, the game for you, because the question I want to debate with you is like, as a talent manager, should I move to New York or Miami or LA? Or if not, when is the best time to be in those cities, right?
Yeah, so I will definitely say that a lot of my business have been virtual, and some of the biggest deals have been virtual. Now, what I would say is the benefit of LA and those kind of bigger cities is almost like strengthening relationships more than building relationships, right? So what I did was we went hella aggressive virtually, networking, really trying to online, right, get regular Zooms.
So when you say networking virtually, you mean like sending email, follow up, having calls?
Emails, LinkedIn responses. Yeah, just getting that connection going, right? Because what's going to happen is you're going to get in calls. Where's everyone from? I'm from here. I'm from LA. Wow, it seems like everybody's from LA, right? What you want to do is basically get so much conversation going that when you go to LA, the first week or two, you can book yourself at least 1 to 2 meetings per day on weekdays.
Should someone lie on their location on LinkedIn, and if they live in a random like city, put on LinkedIn that they live in LA?
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's technically, if you're like recruiting from that time, I don't know the benefits of just saying you're from LA if you're not from LA.
Just to appear as, you're in the scene, right? Like this podcast is also about the hacks, right?
The hacks. I mean, I guess technically, don't get me wrong. Like when I'm hiring, I do hyper focus on certain states I want to hire. So I guess from a lead gen perspective, if I was gonna be targeting brands in LA, I would probably like want to optimize for LA so that brands see me in LA. If that's what you mean.
Yeah. If you're in Alaska, you think that it will help?
Yeah, but I wouldn't say be in a call to say you live in LA. But if it's more like I'm gonna optimize my profiles on LinkedIn to attract LA, then that's different.
Okay. Fair enough. So what about like the location? So you networked a lot online, and then in LA, you've been able to strengthen your relationship. What about New York?
New York, I've been there. I've definitely seen more on the conference scene of New York. I love the advertising scene over there. So more like brand relationships. I will say this, there's a scene in all major cities for influencer marketing. I'd say New York probably leans more towards like fashion, more, I would say. But I myself have not dug into the fashion scene for influencers. But the one thing I can say is LA by far, you go anywhere in the street, right? It's just a way bigger influencer population and just more going on around that more naturally than any other place I've been to so far.
So how do you convert? Like I remember going to VidCon, and I think day one TikTok organized this party, right? And we were together, and you had to get invited there, right? And a lot of talent were invited, but a lot of like young talent managers, when I say young, is emerging talent managers, were not on the list. So how do you get noticed? How do you make sure that you don't stay outside of, like the party and where people have conversations, where people are converting, like relationship into deals? Like, what's the hack?
Yeah, so the hack I would say is everyone wants to go through TikTok, right? TikTok, please let me in. One hack is find sponsors or partners that are going to be there and then go to them to ask for tickets, right? Hey, brand, we would love to come to TikTok with you. My influencer will create 2-3 videos for free. We would just love the experience. A lot of people don't do that. They're so focused on the direct host and not the sponsors of the host. I mean, like Tonje, that's happened to you, right? Like you got us into the TikTok party. You got us into a lot of parties from who was it? Shout out to Gush Cloud, I believe it was Hanjan, the brand over there.
Exactly, Gus Cloud.
I'll definitely say going through sponsors.
So one of the big advice that I can tell emerging talent managers is you have to reinvent yourself as a hacker. I don't know what was your previous job. Maybe you work in like a corporate job where you had to follow the rules. But now that you're in this journey as a freelancer or entrepreneur, you have to hack the system. So you need to fast track your relationship with brands. You have to hack your way to the most profitable creators. It's not just about, oh, I love your content. I want to be part of your universe. It's like, okay, how much money can we make together? This is like we're in a business, right? We're not in like babysitting mode, right? Or fandom. And so the things I've learned from the tech industry, even if not everything is perfect in the tech industry, but this mindset of hacking, this mindset of what can I do to get in front of those brands? Or if I'm in this party, what can I tell to like the campaign manager that in 2 minutes we get this attention? So do you have your elevator pitch or not? Do you know the challenges that this brand has and you come as a solution? I think just few talent managers present themselves as solutions. So you have to make your studies, right? So when you go to a party, go to an event, you see who's going to be there. You try to understand what are the current campaigns, maybe the challenges we have. Maybe it's around like diversity, equality, or whatever a topic, and you come as a solution. Like, oh, I've been able to observe that, like you're lacking those things. I have these amazing creators and they love your brand and they're ready to go. What do you think about this?
Exactly. No, that's good. That's good. Tonje, you should have brought that up earlier in the podcast. Where were you at?
I mean, it's like, there's more for the next podcast. Like, it's been like half an hour. I feel like we gave a lot, like, please, let us your comments, your questions, topic you want us to explore next week. This is a Done Deal show. We're here to support you. We are your advocates. And we talk here in total transparency. So there's no bullshit. Tinashe, you want to close the show?
No, I think Tonje, for this episode, you definitely close it on a really, really strong point. So yeah, I just want to say it's Tinashe Tonje, the co-host of Done Deal Show here with Tonje, and looking forward to the next episode for the Done Deal Show.
Done Deal Show. Thank you, guys.
Of course. Bye.